So recently, the games business show, the editor-in-chief and the main host, Christopher Dring, he did a podcast with Dr.Celia, who was representing Flux digital policy. And there was a lot of backlash from gamers against this podcast. And sorry guys, I'm actually late with this news, but there is a benefit of making the video late. You guys can see that comments are turned off because gamers cannot be easily fooled, and gamers were highlighting flaws in this podcast, and they were calling out both the main host and the podcast guest. And organizations like the game business, they can't handle criticism. They just want toxic positivity, so comments are turned off. So this raises a valid question that whether these organizations represent customers' interest at all, or organizations like these are just here for the corporates. If you guys take a look at the YouTube channel of the game business, the X page, the LinkedIn page, the business model of the game business uh, revolves around a corporate bootlicking, because this Christopher guy conducts interviews of the CEOs, executives, former executives, game developers. So in order to get that level of access, do you think he's going to call out these corporations or speak on behalf of the customers' rights or issues? If he calls out Sony on a physical media issue, do you think he's going to get access, interviews, etc., or in this podcast? No. And despite having that level of access, you guys can see in many of his videos the number of views are quite low, and the average YouTuber, gaming YouTuber, whom they call grifters, they are getting much more views. So, and gamers of people these days are not full. If people are watching those YouTubers much more than these guys with lots of corporate access, that means something. If you guys had been that great, that would have reflected in views as well. But that's not the case. And at the beginning of his video, you can see one thing. And obviously, these views are not enough to pay bills for probably for a guy like this. And this guy is married and has a family. And so he makes more money by corporate sponsorships, corporate access, and probably this guy is enjoying behind the scene deals with these corporations.
Charged by technology and shaped by long-term partnerships. Keyword Studios connects special connects.
My bad, my bad. So he's starting podcast with the introduction of a sponsor.
Specialist expertise around the player experience. This week, is the Stop Killing Games campaign destined to fail? Hello and welcome to the Game Business Show. This week's show is sponsored by Keyword Studios. We've spoken about keywords a few times already on this show because they just do so much across the whole spectrum.
Major red flag, bring localization. It used to be called translation, now it's called localization. So instead of doing authentic translations, these clowns, they alter the translations to push their agendas and to brainwash younger gamers.
Of making and selling video games. They've got 13,000 people in 26 countries who help studios build, launch and support games globally and at scale. They like to say they are supercharged by technology.
Results are in front of us. These localizers are destroying the translations of the Asian games.
And shaped by.
And because of these localizers, certain things get censored in Asian games. because of these fucking clouds.
Long-term partnerships. Keyword Studios connects specialist expertise around the player experience. One of the things they're perhaps best known for, certainly historically, is how they help studios prepare games for more markets, languages, platforms.
And obviously, considering the views. He needs such sponsorships, otherwise he will not make money. And by the way, this guy is himself a physical media collector. I'm going to show you guys.
Physical discs, and to be honest, few of us expected the next generation of consoles to have disk drives built in. But no disk drives at all, not even an external one, no discs. The industry uses percentages to highlight how small the physical market is for games, but that doesn't paint the truth. We're talking millions of gamers here. In the UK, around 40% of people who bought Resident Evil Requiem this year bought it in a box. That's according to Ampere.
At least we'll give credit to him for this, that he actually highlighted this, the sales of Requiem, Pragmata, etc. More sales were physical in certain regions than digital.
I'm sure it's a third-party game, but it's a classic PlayStation IP. I bought that one physically because I'm a fan and I've got physical copies of Resident Evil dating back to the original, which I bought on PC. This has to be a margin play, with the aforementioned cost rises on hardware plus games generally. This is a way to cut out a distribution channel that is frankly quite costly, where the margins just aren't as good.
By the way, I will link one of my previous videos in which I talked in detail that what costs or PlayStation should reduce rather than punishing customers for its mistakes. And all PlayStations till PS4 generation, they were successful with physical media. So this is just a PlayStation punishing customers for its waste of money, rather than trying to reduce its own costs. And though he himself collects physical media, but he's not advocating enough for it. And what sort of a pathetic corporate bootlicker he is, I'm going to show you one of his posts on X. It's not that Sony is wrong, there is a legitimate margin reason for this switch. The cost which Sony should reduce, which I've covered in one of my videos, that will help PlayStation more with the profits rather than eliminating an option for gamers to have physical discs for games. But there is a number of people who will need educating, particularly in certain markets. Customers have a right of preferred. Customers have a right to prefer physical or digital games. Both should exist. They don't need educating, and the education is fabricated by the corporates. So that education cannot be trusted, particularly in certain markets. But at least I will give him credit for this. He highlighted this that. But 55% physical in France, 51% Japan, 43% Australia, 40% the UK. This is thus according to Ampere. And in another of my videos, I talked about it that just making decisions like to end game days by 2028 just on the basis of the US data for the entire world is bullshit. That's a pathetic example of cultural appropriation, the term which these clowns like to use. And Stop Killing Games actually destroyed them because in this podcast, he and the guest host are trying to convey the idea that Stop Killing Games so far has failed and it will fail in the future, and in some time it will cease to exist. We have this subscribers, we have this reads, we have interviews, are bragging about the corporate access. So such a person shouldn't even be trusted. Now about the host.
Today, we're going to tackle an altogether different conversation, although it does loosely tie to the physical disc story. It's around the Stop Killing Games campaign. You may have heard this name come up a few times now. Stop Killing Games is a consumer movement that is largely concerned with preserving video games. It has expanded a bit from that. It started in 2024 in response to Ubisoft shutting down The Crew. That's a 12-year-old racing game that requires a constant internet connection to play. Expert on video game policy, she's been actively involved in conversations around stop killing games and is director of public policy and public affairs at Flux Digital Policy.
So let's take a look at what Flux Digital Policy is. We are a policy and public affairs consultancy specializing in mobile and video games. We support games companies to anticipate, understand, and engage changes in regulation and policy. We are here to help create the best environment for players for creativity and for growth. So it provides a consultancy to game companies that if certain laws are getting passed, so how they should deal with it. In my opinion, the game companies can form its own legal departments if they don't have one. Can hire specialist people itself to deal with these regulation changes. They don't need services of a consultancy like Flux Digital Policy. And such consultancy, if they want to get clients, they will have to do corporate bootlicking. And besides, if they advocate for the rights of the customers, that will not make them money. But shelling for these billion-dollar corporations, that will get them consultancy. That will get them consultancy clients. So there is a conflict of interest you guys can see. And it's a UK organization. It's also fully grifting on this Online Safety Act in the UK. And if Online Safety Act gets removed, then companies will not need then companies will not cry that, oh, we are going to deal with this Online Safety Act, UK bullshit. Such consultancies will not be able to make money then. But if this Online Safety Act remains, it doesn't get removed, so consultancies like these can make money out of it. So that's why they are shelling for this Online Safety Act. And Flux Deposit probably will be affairs. And she also worked with off and she also worked for Ofcom, which actually made this Online Safety Act. So rather than majority of UK citizens, they are against this Online Safety Act. So instead of is calling out this Online Safety Act, she's trying to she had a consultancy and trying to make money out of it. And also, her interests are quite telling. Out making games means she's woke, and she supports all the agenda pushing in games. And she's also one of those people who are destroying our games. Activision. All billion-dollar corporations are part of her interest. Sony Interactive Entertainment. DICE, diversity and inclusion at conferences and events. Another typical activist disguised as consultant. Equity UK. And equity means that certain people, because they are underrepresented, so they should get upper hand in certain opportunities rather than idea of equality in which everyone has equal chance of getting opportunity. Women in esports, women in games, ADHD, mental health, Ofcom. Oh, she is not only a corporate bootlicker but also a bootlicker of the UK government. Actually, in that way, such consultancies can scare companies in the UK. Oh no, if you want to navigate around this online safety act, so use our services. We are going to help you. Otherwise, you will get fucked by this online safety act and the UK regulators. And Stop Killing King has also highlighted that Flux Digital Policy is a subsidiary of the Wigan. And Wigan parent company has clients like Sony, Skydance. Well, turns out the expert has a slight conflict with this being a subsidiary of a company that works for Sony other ESA VG members, big publisher lobby. Dr.Celia employees have a conflict of interest and are thus clearly biased against consumer rights platforms such as Stop Killing Games.
Her name is Dr. Celia Pontin, and here she is. Hello, Celia. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for
And do you think she looks like a gamer? She's just there to make money out of gaming. I can say for sure she doesn't have any passion for gaming. She doesn't play any games, and rather she hates gaming, and it's a majority male fan base. And she's also there to destroy games.
having me.
Now,
And looks like a typical feminist who try their hard to look like men. And they strip themselves of any femininity. You can see short hairs.
I think it's important to say up front.
Another thing I would like to show you guys.
Important that they do. But for TGB, our job is not to avoid the tough conversations, quite the opposite.
Not to avoid the tough conversations, quite the opposite. If you watch majority of his podcasts, and at least if you watch a few of his podcasts, he doesn't confront the guests, and he's just like whatever bullshit the guest is speaking. Yes, sir, I agree. Yes, sir, I agree. Yes, ma'am, I agree. So pathetic corporate bootlicker doesn't confront guests, doesn't even call them out on any bullshit. Fucking liar.
Is a mismatch between what people, what the public might be calling for and what is possible. Not necessarily just technologically, although there are some barriers there, but also when it comes to how existing legislation works, whether that's consumer protection or IP law.
There is a mismatch between what consumers want and what is possible for the billion-dollar corporations. By the way, Stop Killing Games has proposed a very simple solutions, and I think so they are not impossible for billion-dollar corporations. And I'm going to show you those simple solutions. So actually, when Stop Killing Games got a chance to represent itself at European Commission. So on 2050, and by the way, I really enjoyed this press SKG press conference video before they had a hearing at European Commission Parliament. This is a great video. I really enjoyed 1 hour 8 minutes. But this 57-minute bullshit, and out of which Celia Pontin will only talk till 47 minutes, and after 10 minutes is just a corporate bootlicking by the Christopher guy. And watching this entire podcast was quite a humiliation ritual for me. But I did so that I can have more accurate information before making the video. So that's why it's taking me more time to make this video. Now I'm going to show you the simple solutions which Stop Killing Games want.
Networking, connecting to other players is required.
And by the way, for this video, I've turned the subtitles on because the team members of Stop Killing Games who will make points in this video For many of them, English is not a native language. So obviously, they will be speaking English in their own accents. So it might be difficult to understand certain things. So that's why I've turned the subtitles on so that you guys can understand.
Requirement. Almost all games tend to have sound, or a lot of graphics, or interactivity, or the keyboard or gamepad, or something. So this should just be another component on the list. And really, it might even be, for plenty of games, it could even be just a subcomponent of the networking, where instead of developing it in a way that it becomes extremely difficult to modify it so it can continue running without being connected to a specific server, which depends on other licenses, that just thinking like, okay, well, eventually we'll have to shut it down. Maybe it's in a year, maybe it's in 10 years. Let's just have some sort of plan in place. There are many ways of doing that. I mean, some can be having a private server mode or peer-to-peer connection. If it's primarily a single player game, just even an offline mode can work. The ability to turn off microservices that aren't going to be needed for a game that's ended. So things like, anti-cheat or data collection from the customer or account management. An unsupported game doesn't need that. That could even be a liability. And as I understand it, I mean, you might want to have a developer give you a better answer, but as I understand it, it's much more about just building the game differently rather than adding in all this extra.
Simple solution. Corporates don't need to keep servers alive for eternity. Just allow community fans of the game to create private servers. And regarding this point, the podcast tried to raise a point that it's too complicated. And in this video, one of the lawyers of stock collect games will suggest a simple solution for that. I'm going to show you guys that too.
In this. And again, it starts to get quite complicated, and it's another, you can't just hand this over to someone else.
Yeah. Well, at least not easily.
No. Some instances you probably can,
Yeah.
but it's not a case that it's always able.
In some instances, that happens. I guess there's also the thing that I think someone said it to me before was like, what happens if you've got a license for a song? Or maybe it's a car game, maybe it's a license to a certain type of car, and that license is for 10 years for a set period of time, and you've handed it over to someone else. Those licensing agreements that might expire. Is this amateur group, maybe, let's say, of people who are looking after the game, know they have to take this out of the game, and then who's liable if they don't?
And there are other liabilities if you've got
So they're saying that if a live service game or has licensed music, licensed cars, etc. So it's difficult to give fans the authority to have private servers. The first thing that the license music can be removed before handing over the servers before allowing the fans to have private servers. And regarding the license cars, I think so. The car companies don't have much issue with it. Even racing games which are many years old, probably for whom car licenses have ended, they are still being played by many gamers. And actually that helps with the marketing of cars. So car companies will still benefit if older games are being played by gamers and they see the cars in those games. So in music, obviously that's the case that the creator of the music will not be able to earn after a certain period of time. So I think so. Trying to fuse both together as the same thing is bullshit.
Of course, we are mainly talking about multiplayer and live service games. I know there are some questions over single player that's got always online and whether that's necessary, and that's kind of its own thing. But overwhelmingly, we're talking about multiplayer or live service. And when you take over that, you may well find that you have regulatory obligations under things like Ofcom's Online Safety Act implementation.
By the way, she's a fan of the Online Safety Act, which is being hated by majority of UK citizens. And by the way, regarding this bullshit point that obviously live service games in the UK have to follow this bullshit law. So actually, one of the Stop Killing Games lawyers, he will prove this garbage point argument wrong. It's 3415. So this guy is one of the lawyers and the European lawyer working for Stop Killing Games. So let's hear what he has to say on this.
That if their multiplayer game could potentially, in the future, then be hosted on a community server, that the original developer would then still be responsible for the moderation of chat within the game, for the behavior of players within the game. Now, Ross, I believe this is something that you have specifically looked into. Will developers be responsible for player behavior within those surviving games once the developers have ceased development of them?
Well, it
By the
probably
way,
have more
Ross answers will
credibility
be a
coming from one of the
simplistic one, but
lawyers,
after that, a lawyer will give
I
answer.
can't imagine
As
a
in,
developer couldn't find a way to absolve themselves from responsibility when ending support of a game and saying, play this at your own risk. I mean, that's the case with all kinds of products now. I mean, a common example like Windows 98, I'm pretty sure they're not accepting, actually, there might be weird government contracts they might. But the point is, that's part of the reason we focus on games, so we don't have these weird like national security issues to cut through. But yeah, they could have a disclaimer, a splash screen at the start saying, you know, this product is no longer supported. It may represent a risk connecting this online. You are fully responsible for anything that occurs afterwards, and that's it.
I believe that's a
and even if gamers violate a certain a certain rules by mistake, it's not like they are doing cyber crimes or they are doing a massive, or they are posing a massive threat to the national security of any country. And by the way, the answer which this lawyer is going to give, that destroys the whole bullshit this bitch is touting. So let's hear.
fair way of looking at it. What would the lawyers like to
Even
add?
this lawyer will answer this question.
So when the relationship between the consumer and the distributor or the company, whoever it is cut, then they have no title to be sued for because there's no longer a relationship between the parties.
Obviously, if a company has ended support for a live service game, and now if it gives authority to fans, they can now play using their own servers. So that resolves all company of the liability. Now customers will be responsible. They will take the risk.
If the service provider stops providing the service, then he's no longer responsible for the service.
Our main goal here would be for the
And by the way, this bitch has admitted here in the same podcast that she is not a lawyer. And another stupid point which was made by the host himself, by the way, who himself collects physical media. So that's what's pathetic to hear from him.
Exist and actually already provide what's being asked for.
Well, because this gets down to it, right? Stop Killing Games is arguing that when you buy a copy of a game, you should own it. But that's never been the case, has it? That's not even been the case when you bought a physical disc, even if in practicality you do own it, right? Technically you don't. That's right?
It's the niche thing.
He's saying that even if you buy the disc, you don't own the game. Majority of the games, especially on the PS5, majority or the complete game is on the complete games are on the disc, which can be played offline. By the way, all the game disc I have so far for my PS5, they are completely playable offline. and many of them are complete games are on the disk. So in order to enjoy more features and extra content, I had to update them. So, and the main benefit is that if our if ID gets banned, so we can still play those games by creating another account. In digital game, if your ID gets banned, you will lose the games. That's a major difference. That's how you own games in physical media by using physical media. And then 2950.
Is linked, but it isn't the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's we don't want to detract from the ultimate aim of this. And I think their point of view on that is because an awful lot of people buy games digitally, even if they are available in physical formats. And so it's already a live issue when it comes to digital distribution, right? Like the conversation is already happening. I do think this has kind of pushed it up a little bit as well. But it's not the thing that has put this on the agenda. I also think it highlights kind of where there's an overlap between digital only and physical distribution, in that there's, the code in a box like approach to physical distribution.
Even if it's available physically, digital sales are more. On PC, there is no option of physical media. And on consoles, there are certain live service games for which you have to pay, like Arc Raiders, Marathon, Helldivers. So, and the sports titles, they are bought mainly digitally because you have to update these games a lot. So, no use of having a disc. But for the single player games, and so far all the games have released, if there was a physical option, majority of the sales for those games were through physical discs, not digital. And the recent data of the recently released game show, and there are certain games which are only available digitally, so that's not an accurate comparison. And another thing I'm going to show you that firstly, the number of subscribers are too low for a person who have immense levels of corporate access. Number of subscribers are quite low for that. And views, 2 days ago 2.4k, 2.4, 1.9, 15k, 3.2, 1.2, 3.9, 74,000, 1.8, 17k, 2.8, 1.2, 3.4, 3.3, 2k, 3.4, 4k, 22k, 1.8, 1.8, 1.8, 4.2, 4k, 2k. No interview, no views. And this is an example. And just a gaming YouTuber. 21k, 25k, 32, 21, 6.9, 23, 23, 15, 4.7, 12, 11, 17, 21, 10, 13, 96, 12, 23k, 46k, 14k, 41k, 18k, 11k, 10k, 11k, 10k, 34k. Views are much more than the corporate bootlicker games business show. And the reason is that obviously gamers can see, people can see that these YouTubers who don't have very corporate access, they will be more honest about the discussions, the topics, the news. So that's all for today. So So the main purpose of making this video was that we shouldn't get manipulated or brainwashed
Just for men,
by such
mustache and beard
podcasts.
color let you brush away grays for thicker, fuller look in 5 minutes.
Never, and I mean never, introduce yourself by saying your name.
So we don't have to give up the physical gamers, and we have to keep fighting for our right to have game discs. And we have to keep calling out such podcasts and such people. Bye.